What's going down, everybody? God bless each and every single one of you guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for being with me. And today we are going to be having a little bit of a story time. Once upon a time, there was this vehicle that I was working on that had a no crank, no start. It was a no crank, no start, no ECM communication, so I couldn't connect to it with my scanner. Just no communication whatsoever. Um, it just, so I started to troubleshoot it. Did all my preliminary checks, checking the fuses, checking the relays, and everything was checking out fine as far as that goes. And long story short, um, I checked the ECM connector. I removed the ECM connector. I checked for power there, and I didn't have no power at my ECM connector, right? My ECU. I had an ECU wake up, but not ECM power or constant power or battery power rather. And so I started to troubleshoot it, and I looked up at the diagrams. I found the connector, checked the pins, and I checked my resistance to ground, and I found resistance to ground in the harness. So I thought, case closed. It's going to be a bad harness. And before I actually condemned that harness, I was checking, like I said, I was checking the diagram and stuff like that, and this is kind of where I wanted to shoot this story to get at with the story, is that when I was looking through the diagrams, and it's always important to learn how to read those diagrams and everything, right? And for the most part, I think I do a fairly good job. I'm not the best at it, obviously, and we all miss the mark every once in a while, right? And I think on this one, I kind of missed the mark. Because I looked at the diagram, and in the diagram, when you look at it, there's wires that sometimes they become spliced, right? And so it will show, like, not the pin numbers, right? But just for the sake of argument, pin 17 on the ECM connector will lead to pin 15 on the firewall connector. And in between there, it'll splice off and go to different directions, right? Power going into different directions, or even signals and grounds and so forth. A lot of them, they share a common circuit or a common wire. And on this particular one, when I was following the diagram, at the ECM connector, instead of it actually going off into like a different splice, it actually at pin 17, again, just for the sake of argument, it would actually start from there and then go off into two different directions. And at that time, when I had followed one of them, I had found this connector that was labeled ECM power, and I think it was a def pump. And so I checked it, and I had 12 volts disconnected, but I back probed it, everything together, and I had 4 volts. So I knew there was an issue there. Where I messed up at was that when I was troubleshooting it, now, being that it was at the def pump, I figured that that wire was actually going into the after treatment harness for this particular vehicle. And so I kind of retracted, and I wanted to go back to the root cause of when I wasn't getting no power at the ECM connector. And that was my issue, right? So when I spoke with a really good friend of mine he's been teaching me a lot, and they're at work, and he sat down and he's like, hey, well, let's look over this schematic together. So he took the time, and we looked over the schematic, and he showed me where my fault was, right? And he said, you see this pin right here? He goes, how it splits off into two right at the connector. He goes, that's telling you that you have an option, either this option or this option. And that's where I had made my mistake, because I was trying to base it off of the first one of the connector being at the firewall. And I ended up finding, and that's how actually we ended up finding it, because when he told me, look at this connector over here and look at the pins, and check them, back probe them and check them. Well, I came back to him, I was like, look, it doesn't have those 2 pins at those 2 locations. And so I even asked him, I go, well, I mean, maybe it could be that they had the wrong schematic or something for that one, right? And he was like, no. He goes, what's happening? He goes, is that, just like I said, you have an option. You either get your ECM power from here or from this other part of the diagram that splits off into the bottom. And so he was right at that time. So he helped me diag that truck. Actually helped me a lot more than I'm letting off, right? But it's a lesson to be learned, to learn these systems, right? And before we go into it, to learn these systems, it's of grave importance to actually be able to sit down, look at it, think about it thoroughly, and start troubleshooting, accordingly. And so I learned quite a bit from that experience. It was a huge loss to me, but at the same time, it was a huge learning experience. And based off of the learning experience itself, it was well worth it. Not that I want to lose again, you know what I'm saying, or go through another situation like that again, but the knowledge I gained from that experience, to know that that's not going to happen to me again, that was a huge plus. That was, I ended up winning more than I actually lost. I lost on time, and obviously if we lose on time, being commissioned, you lose on money as well. But I mean, it is what it is. It was a learning experience, and I gained a lot of knowledge. I gained a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge from this particular situation. And we finally got the truck up and going, and everything's right. You know what I'm saying? But it's to take the time, and also to learn from your mistakes. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that I learned, at least from myself, is when I've had a couple of nightmare situations. When I can't really figure out a truck, and I've actually had to go out and get some help from this good friend of mine. When I've been able to actually sit down after it's all over and this and that, you know what I'm saying, and before I get into that, once I have all the information and we figured out 100% this is it, because the truck's up and going like this one, the truck is cranking, truck is going and everything, right? Is to sit down, meditate on the actual issue, just think about everything that happened and everything, go step by step, what the symptoms were, what steps you took, and what ultimately led you to that situation, and write them down. I have my own little notebook, and every time I've had like very hard issues like this, I've actually been able to sit down and just do like what I said. You know what I'm saying? I've thought about it, where I messed up, learn from my mistakes, and I write everything down. What the symptoms were, what steps I took, and what ultimately fixed it. And an explanation as to how we got to that conclusion, how we fell to that conclusion. Because that's what helps us grow. That's what helps us learn. A lot of times we may lose, but at the same time, the knowledge that we gain, the experience that we gain, like that within itself is winning. And that's what it's all about. So I guess it's more like a motivation. It's a story time, but more of a motivation to not lose heart whenever these hard times, especially in diagnosing a vehicle, when they hit you, when you lose. I mean, sometimes we lose, sometimes we win, But ultimately, if you really think about it, just the way I'm explaining it, we always win. It's a win-win situation. Even though we lost, we gain knowledge. We gain knowledge, you gain the experience, and that's not going to happen again, And so I learned quite a bit from this experience, from this situation, and I just kind of wanted to share that with you. I was going to say something else, but I actually forgot what I was going to say. So, but yeah, man, that's my short little story. As far as, and I know I just kind of went through it real quick. I guess the other part of it too is like I said, when I found that one connector and I back probed it, I should have kept going and trying to figure out what the issue was with that one, because I guess if I would have continued, if I would have continued that same route, I ultimately would have found out what the issue was, and I didn't, I retracted, and I wanted to, like, no, the issue's over here at the ECM. It can't be this part of the issue, you know what I'm saying? And that was my fault. That was that's all on me. So, again, man, God bless each and every single one of you guys, man. Thank you for bearing with me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's different, but at the same time, I think it's also important for us to be able to share the times that we lose, the times that we mess up, so that we can know that not everybody out there is perfect. I'm not perfect. Lord knows I'm not perfect. Excuse me. Lord knows I'm not perfect. And a lot of YouTubers out there as well, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all make those mistakes, but we all learn from them. And that's what makes us grow, So, once again, God bless each and every single one of you guys, man. And one last important thing, the most important part of this whole video, if you catch anything, catch this, man. Jesus Christ is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and to him every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that he is King and he's the Lord, so seek him, man. Seek him, try to find out what the gospel is, and may the Lord soften your heart so that you could believe in him, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ.